to the Winnetka Village Council regular virtual meeting for April 20th, 2021. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask that everybody please mute or your cell phones or other electronic devices. And if you can remember, mute your microphone when you're not speaking to improve the sound quality of the meeting. Although I'm the biggest offender on that. So we'll start out with Rob, would you like to do a roll call for attendance?
Sure, thank you. Trustee Apatow?
Here.
Trustee Dearborn?
Here.
Trustee Kripe?
Here.
Trustee Lampier?
Here.
Trustee Swerk?
Here.
President Rins.
Here. Second order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll lead us tonight. Kristen, do your thing. Here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the United
of the
States
United States of America,
and to the
to the
republic
republic
for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty.
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, quorum check.
Month of May is upon us. First meeting is the 4th. Study session is the 11th and May 18th regular meeting. Does anyone have a conflict for any of the meetings in May?
Rob, I'm going to miss the 11.
Okay,
I might have a conflict.
there's Jack.
Lucky.
Hi, Jack.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
All right.
Good sense of humor.
We'll move on to public comment. Kristen, will you please ask the members of the audience if they have anything they would like to share with Village Council on items that are not on the agenda?
Thank you, President Rintz. We received no written public comment in advance of the meeting. We do have a member of the audience in council chambers at this time. So I'll recognize the council chamber audience first. Council chambers.
Just a second. Oh, hi, Kristen. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, Kristen. I have one person from the public. This is Brian Keys. I'm going to step away from the mic. I have one person from the public that would like to address the Village Council.
Awesome.
Thank you. Could you please step to the microphone and state your name and address?
I'm Julie Windsor. I live at 1479 Tower Road, Winnetka, Illinois, as well as a shopkeeper at 552 Lincoln Avenue in Winnetka, Illinois with Beat Street. I just want to make you aware the streetscape project has been much more hazardous to our public than it should have been. I did bring a picture. I don't know if you can see the picture. I don't know what you're seeing exactly. But there's sort of barricades protecting the public from all this construction. But if they enter into across the street from the parking, they go through some of that debris. They do not realize that they cannot go from the parked cars across the street. They have to go all the way to the corner. They don't know that, and we've had women fall and hurt themselves.
Mm.
They're wearing masks and they can't see as well as they could if they weren't wearing masks. And a lady gouged her forehead over the weekend. I mean, it's just not very safe. So I wanted to make you guys aware of that situation with like barricades. Can they see this?
No, actually, she has a video, a
Like
picture.
a photograph.
So I'll get a copy of it. I understand that for public comment, you can't see the video. So I'll get a copy of it for the council.
Okay, so just so you know, there's like these horses they use for construction to block off areas, but they're spaced out, and then they tied like police tape, that yellow police plastic tape, to those barricades, but it's broken in many places. And so the public is confused and they're getting hurt. And so maybe it's too late for this project, but if you do another streetscape on Elm, on East Elm, you're going to want to really keep the public safer than this. This has not been adequate. Okay, So that was it for the public comment. I'm going to give this to Brian.
Thanks, Julie. I'll be out there tomorrow interacting with the contractor. We've had a couple issues that have been similar to what you reported, and we just have to enlighten him a little bit
Yeah, because
louder.
I don't want to hear about somebody else getting hurt.
Neither do I. It's not worth it. But thanks for bringing it to our attention. I'll make sure I'm out there in the morning, and we'll see if we can get them to tighten things up.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving
At
ahead.
this time, thanks, President Rentz. At this time, if you are attending the meeting using the Zoom platform and would like to address the council on an item not on the agenda, please use the raise your hand feature and you will be recognized. Scarlett has raised her hand. Scarlett, I'm going to allow you to talk and ask you to unmute. Please state your name and your address.
Hi, this is Scarlett Harper. I live on 711 Sheridan Road in Winnetka, Illinois. I just wanted to, well, I'm partly here just to watch and be here for the Monarch Pledge agenda item. And since I had worked on that with the EFC, but also I just wanted to bring to your attention a piece of legislation that I've been working on in the State House with Representative Robin Gable that will potentially be coming to a vote this week. It's a bill aimed to protect pollinators and wildlife and even humans. It puts in place restrictions on mosquito control pesticide applications. In Illinois, it doesn't ban them, but it does create restrictions so that they are only used when you actually have mosquitoes, that they are not used on a subscription-based model, that they are that use safely, that neighbors are notified when they are used, and various things like that. And so that's basically its intent. And yeah, I thought I would let you guys know about that.
Thanks, Carl. Hey, I
Hey.
saw you on TV this morning. You really look great.
Hey,
Oh, thank you.
Chris. Oh,
Yes,
I think-
Penny?
Can I jump in on this? I have been really concerned about this particular issue. Scarlett, I am so thrilled that you're doing this because I looked into this last fall or last spring with the subscription service I had, and I couldn't get straight information. And the more I looked into it, the more alarmed I became. So you are doing something that's really necessary, and I hope we can help get the word out because I think this is really, really important. So great, good job, good for you. That's terrific. Thank you very, very much.
I'm
and
glad
congrats
you're,
for, and congrats for being on TV. Awesome.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Well, yeah. And then also just a quick word about the trees then with this streetscape plan. I don't know, it still really did break my heart that we did take them down, the huge old big trees in the town area with the streetscape plan. And I know there is a plan to put more trees up, but it will take decades or longer for them to grow to maturity. So I still think that we should be planting far more trees than we take down to make up for that difference. But yeah, thanks for letting me talk about that.
Thank you, Scarlett.
And next I'll recognize Liz. Liz, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Please state your name and your address.
Thanks, Kristen. This is Liz Kunkel. I live at 1303 Holly Lane in Winnetka. Excuse me, thank you. I just wanted to also, I have to say, sorry, but kudos to Scarlett. It's unbelievable. She met Representative Robin Gable approximately 6 months ago and has a bill up for a vote this week. It's unbelievable. This doesn't happen in the real world. It really doesn't. So it's a testament to what can be done. So, and thank you to President Rentz for elevating Scarlett to the Environmental and Forestry Commission, which helped some of this happen to make some of those connections. So I just wanted to say really quickly that I also had a little piece of good news on the state level legislative front today. As many of you know, my primary passion is food waste. It's not as cool as bees and pollinators, but it's my thing. So I learned a few months ago of a California state legislative resolution that is typically I don't know what the verb is for a resolution, enacted, implemented each year in California, and it dedicates or recognizes the first full week in May as Compost Awareness Week. And I learned about this state bill in California a few months ago. I emailed our state senator here in the Winnetka area, Laura Fine, and I said, hey, I don't know honestly anything about how this works, but can we get something like this in Illinois? And this was probably 3 months ago, and she expressed some interest and said, sure, I'll look into it. I like it. And I found out today that she introduced it. And I say this only to say, it's such a great reminder of sometimes all you need to do is ask, literally. Like it's amazing. So I don't know what happens at the state level. I don't know if people need to support it or anything like that, but hopefully this proclamation will be enacted and it will help direct people, guide people, educate people, and increase awareness about the need for and benefits of food scrap reduction, diversion, and composting. So I just wanted to mention it because cool things happen when you ask. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Liz.
And next, Mickey has raised his hand. Mickey, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
We sure can.
And
Okay, I thought, Chris, I think I inherited your internet connection problems tonight because everything's very choppy. So thank you for sending that my way.
My
So
pleasure.
anyway, I really just have some questions and I may be a bit behind on what the answer is, but my questions revolve around the 4th of July. Has the village decided what, if anything, they are going to allow or do on the 4th of July? And has that been announced yet? And if not, what would be your plan to announce what that plan will be? Thanks.
All right, I think I'll direct that over to the village manager who's been deeply involved in all matters COVID and probably is the best source of information for that.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Hello, Mickey. We've been in touch with your park district, specifically John Peterson. And at this point in time, Winnetka, along with many other communities, are postponing the fireworks for the 4th of July. The announcement hasn't been completely nailed down, but we expect it to come soon. The park district has informed us they would like to have the fireworks go with the Fall Fest in September, when we feel and hope that things will be much better than where we are now based on where our projections are at this point. Obviously, we don't have all the data. We can't, the crystal ball is not completely clear, but we think September will be a much better time.
Did you catch that, Mickey?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So Rob, does
sorry,
that
can you hear me
mean
now?
that-
So no, I knew about the fireworks being postponed until September. My question really is in regards to, is there going to be anything celebratory in the town throughout the day? You know, parade, a modified parade,
Not-
something on the village green, that kind of
Yep.
stuff.
Yeah, Mickey, that hasn't been determined yet.
Okay, any timing on that, Rob?
I'll have to get back to you, Mickey. John and I
Okay.
will get back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mickey.
Well, on that point, Rob and Chris, I certainly hope we can do something parade-like. Mickey said modified, whatever, but you know, I think we could probably figure that out. But my opinion.
Yeah, Bob, the park district has actually organized the parade. They've expressed that there are some concerns about organizing it, but it's not settled yet.
Okay.
Okay.
You'd be nice. Every day's a parade here in Florida. So
President Rents, are no additional hands raised for public comment at this time.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. Seeing no more comments, we'll move forward to item 5, which is reports. The first item is motion to extend village president's declaration of emergency, and our village attorney, Peter Friedman, will review this additional extension to the emergency declaration.
As you know, at the beginning of COVID, we did this every meeting. And the rules, the statute requires that the council decide how long the village president's declaration will go. A few months ago, fall, I think, Kristen, we started doing it a longer period since there didn't seem to be a need to do it every meeting. So this is just the next extension that gets us, I think, until mid-June. And then we can reevaluate, and the village president can reevaluate at that time too, along with the council. The terms of the declaration are identical to what the previous declaration has been. And it requires, like the other ones, a motion second and a roll call vote.
Okay, any questions for Peter?
Peter, what, or maybe this is a Chris or a Rob question, what actions or what powers or whatever have been exercised under this emergency declaration that wouldn't be otherwise exercised? I mean, is there anything that, any reason for this, I guess, at this point? I don't object to it. I'm just saying, is there any reason for it?
Yes, the reasons are essentially the same as when we were here before. And it really centers around emergency staffing. We do, as the council knows, we have been supporting vaccination clinics run by Chulosco and by the Mavis Division 3 with the county. And we need all the flexibility we can muster in terms of staffing those sites, either with paramedics who administer vaccines or administrative staff that have to work it. We have anywhere between 50 and 60 people that will rotate in a full day of a vaccination clinic, and we need the flexibility of scheduling and staffing for emergency purposes in that regard. And then there has been some, we've reported in the warrants the purchasing that occurs. Of course, we're completely transparent with the council in that regard, but it really centers around emergency staffing.
Okay.
Other questions? Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to extend the president's November 23rd, 2020 declaration of emergency until the end of the June 22nd, 2021 meeting of the village board?
So, second,
Roll call vote?
Trustee Coladarchi,
yes.
Trustee Kripe,
Yes.
Trustee Swerk,
Yes.
Dearborn,
Yes.
Trustee Apatow,
Yes.
Trustee Lampier.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we'll move forward with reports, starting with trustee reports. Show of hands for anybody who wishes to report this evening. Seeing none, move forward. Village attorney, do you have anything else to add, Peter?
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Okay, village manager.
Yes, I do have a brief announcement continuing on the vein of vaccination sites. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock, the communities that are involved with the vaccination site at New Trier will be releasing or sending an email for open vaccinations appointments that'll be available on Thursday. This is available to any residents age 16 and older. This will be Pfizer vaccination clinic. So the event or the link goes live 10 o'clock tomorrow, and we expect those doses to be snatched up pretty quickly.
How many, Rob?
For the link, there'll be a little between 500 and 600 doses. We had pre-registered some students for the first part of that batch.
Hey, Rob, are we doing this, say 2,000 people sign up? Are we gonna do it age? Is this first come, first serve, or can we do this age?
This is first come, first serve. It's open. It's an open link. Now that the restrictions are, there aren't any restrictions for eligibility. It's an open link.
No, okay. I was just thought we might have an age component in there. So if somebody's 55 or 60 years old, they take precedent over somebody 16.
If there are residents that would like to email us for a wait list, we're certainly happy to take those because we expect additional clinics to come on. But at this time, we're trying to make the link as available as quickly as we can, and as widely available as possible. That's all I had.
Okay, any other questions for Rob on that? Okay. Village President, couple items. Number one, you already heard that Scarlett was on WGN this morning talking about the legislation that she's bringing forward on pollinators. It was actually a really good segment, and I'd be happy to share that with anybody who is interested in it. It's about a 5-6 minute segment, but it's really impressive to see somebody from our Environmental and Forestry Commission making a difference down in Springfield. And I'm really proud of her, and I'm proud of the village for standing behind her and letting her go out in the world and do good things for the future generations. So that was really awesome.
If you have a link, I'd like to see it, Chris. Thanks.
Sure, I'll text it to you. I've got it on my thing, so I'll just text you the link there. Anybody else, just let me know and I'll send it over. Secondly, happy 420 to anybody who is so inclined to celebrate. I am not one of them, but I know there are many of them out there in the legal world these days, so can't let it go by without at least a mention. And hats off to all my deadhead friends. All right, we'll now move forward with other more pressing business here at the village level. Arbor Day proclamation. The first, I have a couple of proclamations to read tonight that were on consent, but I felt that they were important enough for us to read them. And if you wish to comment, that's great. If not, we can just go ahead and pass them through. But the first one is the Arbor Day proclamation. And it goes like this. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. Excuse me. Whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, the Council of the Village of Winnetka do hereby proclaim April 30, 2021 as Arbor Day in the Village of Winnetka. And we urge all residents to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands and to support our village's urban forestry program. I just want to say that that I participated in this every year. Rob, are we still doing the trees that, the free trees over at the village yards? We can pick up the little.
We had them out before, pre-COVID. We used to have them here at the village hall, but I don't think that they're out at the yards this year.
Okay.
But I know we'd like to restart that once things get a little bit back to normal.
Yeah, I've got 3 trees in my yard that are doing really well as a result of that, and hopefully they'll grow up and be big trees someday.
I have a 10-year-old one that's looking pretty good now.
Yeah, so that's a great program, and I look forward to us coming back to that next year. All right, guys, may I have a motion to proclaiming April 30, 2021 Arbor Day in Winnetka?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call vote?
Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
Trustee Lampier?
Yes.
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Trustee Kripe?
Yes.
Trustee Colidarchi? I see him. Yes, he raised his hand.
Yeah.
And trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
and carries. Thank you.
Thank you. That one carries. All right, item number 7, the monarch butterfly proclamation. Whereas the monarch butterfly is an iconic North American species whose multi-general migration and metamorphosis from caterpillar to butterfly has captured the imagination of millions of Americans. And whereas the count in 2017 Western monarchs, which overwinters in California, reached an historic low of fewer than 29,000 butterflies, down from 1.2 million 2 decades previously, and falling below the predicted extinction threshold. The population failed to rebound in 2019, mating just 29,000 individual butterflies. Whereas 20 years ago, more than 1 billion eastern monarch butterflies migrated to Mexico, but in the winter of 2014, only 60 million made the trip. Whereas every citizen of Winnetka can make a difference for the monarch by planting pollinator attracting native plants to provide habitat for the monarch and other pollinators in locations where people live, work, learn, play, and worship. And whereas, on behalf of the people of Winnetka who are already and planning on creating healthy habitat for these magnificent butterflies, the Village Council is honored to lead the way by signing the National Wildlife Federation's Mayor's Monarch Pledge. And we encourage other officials across the United States and neighboring countries to take a stand with us so that the monarch butterfly will once again flourish across the continent. Now, therefore, the Council of the Village of Winnetka do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2021 as Monarch Remembrance Day in the Village of Winnetka. And again, this dovetails really nicely with Scarlett's hard work at the state level, and I felt it necessary for us to share. Go ahead, Penny.
As I mentioned earlier with Scarlett, I last year did a little research on this. I happen to have a lot of milkweed that sprang up in my yard. It just came up like weeds, and I let it grow. And I've learned a lot about it in the meantime, in terms of how important Chicago is, in terms of the monarch flyway, and that having some milkweed in your backyard can make a huge difference. So there is a lot that we can do as a community to support this, and it really, the monarchs are on the brink. So I think that there's a lot that we can do, and I've reached out to the EFC about this, in terms of educating our community about, letting some milkweed grow in your yard, but also about the pesticides. It's just the information that is being given out is not clear in terms of what it's doing to the monarch population. And I think that a lot of us would be horrified to know that we're complicit with, the death of the larva and stuff. You can grow milkweed, but if you're killing off the eggs and the larvae, obviously it's not doing any good. So I'm so thrilled the village is that we're making this proclamation, and I hope there's a lot we can do going forward to use the green space that we have to support the resurgence of the population. Up in Michigan, we're at the tail end of the migration, and we watch them, come to the end of their life cycle up there, and it's absolutely magnificent to see it, but the numbers that have dropped off radically in the last several years, and it's really disturbing to watch. So I hope we can do a lot as a community to make a difference in this. So thanks.
Yeah, with the rebuild of the golf course coming up, I'm hoping that maybe the golf course architect can think about milkweed and some of the other factors in the waste areas out there, and that'd be an awesome addition as well.
Yeah, but again, the application of pesticide is critical to making it work. So just the plants themselves won't be enough.
Yep.
So, yep.
Okay, may I have a motion proclaiming April 22nd, 2021 Monarch Remembrance Day in Winnetka?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Lampier,
Yes.
trustee Apatow,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Caladarchi.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item 8, Environmental and Forestry Green Awards. Keeping in the spirit of the of what we've set forth here on 420 Day. The Green Award recipients are chosen based on the following award categories: green buildings, recycling waste reduction, land, air, water, stormwater, energy, and sustainable communities. And we have EFC member Liz Kunkel here again to join us and help with the awards. So Liz, take it away.
Thank you, President Rintz. So this year we have one recipient of the Green Award, and it is Spirit Elephant Restaurant in Hubbard Woods. As you probably know, this restaurant only contains vegan options, which in and of itself helps reduce the impact significantly of our food system on water use, air pollution, and climate change. The restaurant also procures all of its food, as much of its ingredients as possible from locally grown sources, which further reduces its ecological footprint, reduces transportation costs and carbon output. They've also shown dedication to waste reduction, composting, and recycling. I spoke with them early on about composting options, and the owner expressed some confusion about it because they almost create zero waste in the kitchen. Their chef inherently uses all of the food scraps that are left over in all of the soup stock and drinks and everything else that they use. So there's very little back of house waste. The only reason they needed to collect waste is from the consumers. The restaurant itself is also designed to be energy efficient. It includes Energy Star appliances, energy efficient lighting. And as many of you know, they survived COVID largely by transitioning very nimbly to a 100% takeout model. And I think it's not covered in the executive summary here, but I was most impressed by their CSA-like model where they did cooking demonstrations. You could order a box of produce, the community supported agriculture is what CSA stands for. It's like a co-op. So you order a box of fruits and vegetables. They come monthly, and the box that you would get through Spirit Elephant, you'd pick it up on a Thursday, and on Saturday you could join their Facebook page live and watch their chef create a meal using the ingredients that you have in front of you. And this was last spring. It was amazing what they did. So they've adapted. They're an amazing resource for our village, amazing model for our village. As you may or may not know, the award was actually presented in person last week. EFC chairperson Dowding, I think coincidentally, honestly, had a reservation at the restaurant with his wife last Thursday, and suggested that maybe they bring the actual plaque in person and present it to the owner. And in one of those ways, it all worked out. And so, at the start of at the start of their reservation. Ironically, also the woman who nominated Spirit Elephant Restaurant is a woman who happens to be a very accomplished photographer. So she went to take pictures. And Spirit Elephant has posted the pictures already on their social media account. They have the plaque posted at their host stand. They were very excited and honored to receive the award. They feel very humbled by it and very grateful for all the support from the community. And like I said, they're wonderful models for a sustainable lifestyle. And the EFC was proud to award them the Green Award in 2021. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Liz, and thanks for all the hard work you're doing. We really
Liz, what if we don't approve this? What happens if we don't approve it?
There's no council
website?
action, Bob.
We would try again next year, Bob.
Exactly. Good.
Bob, stop trying to get a free meal at Spirit Elephant. Come on, man.
Oh, I like that idea. Go for the free meal.
I'm all about free meals. You bet.
Genius. Yeah, as you know, they're great. So thank you all.
Thank you, Liz. Well, I wanted to open this up for public comment. Kristen, would you check to see if any of the members in the public would like to speak on this matter?
Thank you, President Rintz. At this time, anyone in the audience in Zoom, if you'd like to comment on this matter, please use the Zoom platform to raise your hand. I see no comments in Zoom, President Rintz. At this time, I will ask Council Chambers.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We'll bring it back to council. Any comments, questions, anything anybody wants to say? Go ahead, Rob.
I think it's great. I mean, this is a pretty easy one to get behind, and if not everyone can do what they do, but at least it gives people pause to say what can they do. I think publicizing this award is good, because even if everybody gets a little better, it's going to be better for everybody. So it doesn't take a lot of thought to try and get better at this. So that's all. Congratulations to them.
But it does take enlightenment, and that's why we have our EFC, right, Liz?
Yes, that's right.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing none. Liz, thanks again. Appreciate all your hard work, and
Thank you.
we will connect one of these days, I promise you.
I believe it. I do. I won't give up. You know that. We'll connect.
I almost sensed a little cynicism there, but I'll let it go.
No, not at all. No, I'm serious. We will connect. Seriously, we'll probably connect tomorrow now because you just karmaed it into action.
Okay.
All right. Have a
we'll
good night.
move on.
Thank you.
We'll move forward with our less pressing business here. So, all right, item number 9 is finally the approval of the agenda. Does any trustee wish to remove an item on the consent agenda for a separate vote? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the final form of the agenda?
So moved.
Second,
Roll call vote?
Sorry, trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Lampier,
yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn,
Yes,
trustee Apatow,
Yes.
trustee Caladarchi.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. We'll move forward to the consent agenda, and I'll ask the village clerk to read the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Approval of village council meeting minutes for April 8th, 2021, regular meeting, and April 13th, 2021 study session. Approval of the warrant list dated April 2nd through the 15th, 2021, in the amount of $1,040,170.41, and resolution number R49, 2021, a Class P liquor license for Open Kitchens and outdoor seating permit for Pete's Coffee.
Excellent. Thank you, Rob. All right, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by omnibus vote?
so moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Dearborn,
Yes,
trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Caladarchi,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes. Sorry.
trustee
It was
Apatow,
my turn.
Yes.
and trustee Lampier.
Yes.
Thank
That
you.
motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving along here, ordinances and resolutions. Time to roll up our sleeves. Item A, ordinance number M9 2021, 630 Sheridan Road zoning variations, up for introduction, possible adoption. Zoning Board of Appeals has recommended approval of this application for zoning variations to allow an existing playhouse to remain on the subject property. Community Development Director David Schoen is here to review that for us. David?
David's coming into the room now, President Rentz.
Good evening. Just briefly, the ZBA, as President Rentz said, reviewed a playhouse that needs variation for height and setback. 3 neighbors came out in support of the request. In the end, the ZBA recommended approval by a vote of 4-1. I think the biggest issue of discussion was their standards that they use to evaluate them, and struggling with whether or not the property, would have unreasonable return to the property if they didn't grant it, unique circumstances. In the end, they felt the proposed playhouse was appropriate in its location and size, and therefore recommended approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Yeah, I have a question relative to the standards, relative to safety. So this one struck me as a safety issue that you know, that house is on the corner of two busy streets, and really the only place to put it is back in the corner where they put it. Is safety a standard that can be used in this?
It would be in terms of impact on the neighborhood safety. So I guess someone could make that argument.
Well, neighborhood safety or safety of the people who are on the house, you know, of the occupants, the children.
I mean, one could make that argument, yes.
Okay, because that, I mean, obviously the valuation of the houses, but the safety just struck me as if it isn't in the standard, it should be, you know.
There is a general, excuse me, Trustee Lanford, there is a general one that includes safety.
Okay.
Well,
Andy?
Penny, I think you're right that had that this house been located, had the playhouse been located in a different spot on the lot, it might have been far more objectionable. You know, if it had been, you know, over by Sheridan or whatever, not so good.
Yeah, right. I
But
mean, it's
They kind of put it in this, you know, aside from the zoning ordinance and so on, they kind of put it in the best spot possible.
David, is there like a minimum threshold? Like, why are we talking about a playhouse? I mean, honestly, one of the saddest things I've seen in 6 years in the village council. Like, why in the hell is a neighbor calling to complain about a kid's playhouse in the middle of a pandemic? And I'm sorry, I had kind of a strong reaction. And I'm wondering, can we revise our code? Because I don't ever want to see this again.
So in this instance, the code limits in terms of what sort of setback variations the ZBA can review.
Yeah.
This one exceeds that limitation, therefore that's why it had to come to the council.
Is it a square footage? Is it like?
It's a percentage. So the percentage of this one, I think, is 33%, and the maximum.
It's 1 foot on a 2 foot setback. So that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah. So we could amend the code to have a different standard for smaller accessory structures.
Yeah.
In terms of all of those would only be reviewed by the zoning administrator or the ZBA.
Is this structure small enough that it falls below permitting requirements?
Well, technically, we have no minimum structure size for permitting requirements.
I think that's something we ought to give serious thought to.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Andy, I think a lot of this cleanup we're gonna catch when we finally get the 2040, the plan.
Yeah.
We'll be able to pick up a lot of this stuff in one fell swoop. If you look at page 45 on the agenda packet, I mean, really, folks? I mean,
right.
Look at the picture of what we're talking about.
I know, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
I can't even in good conscience, like, consider this like a zoning.
What about that playhouse that gets given away every 4th of July from the parade?
Right.
Do they have to get a permit to put it in their yard? I mean, because that's about the same size this one is, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'd also remind you, whether or not you need a building permit, you still need to comply with zoning.
Right.
I'm just wondering if there's like a de minimis kind of.
Yeah, the kids are pretty
short.
Yeah, and Andy, I understand where you're coming from, and I totally agree with you on this particular instance because of where it's at.
Right.
But think of how many other locations there could be in the village.
Right.
Or it's right in someone's front yard or someplace totally not proper. Right. So the way I'm looking at this, I have to stand behind the board. The zoning board approved it 4-1. And if it came to the board initially, it probably would have been approved anyway. But think of the opposites where someone decides to put a planter in the front right of way. I mean, you just never know what's going to happen. And I totally agree with you on this particular case.
I know a lot of towns have a threshold, right? So a structure that is, I don't know what it is, if it's like 7 by 7 by 7, whatever the cube is. I think that's something we had to give thought to because look, everyone puts a garden shed in their front yard, let their neighbors give them a dirty look. Let's not, I mean, this is not a neighborly way to proceed and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Well, how many, I mean, how often does this actually come into play? I mean,
It
this,
doesn't happen. This is what, I mean, seriously, that's the other thing. I have a strong suspicion if you lifted our entire zoning code, threw it in the garbage, our town would look exactly the same tomorrow and a year from now and 2 years from now and 10 years from now. But that's why, when I see something like this, I really shake my head, and it achieves nothing except, I mean, to see a family in a pandemic have to put through a process like this is just, that is not the way law works. That's not the way law should work. And we are the lawmakers, and we have a duty to make sure that it's not imposing a burden.
well, that was my point though, is that if this is not a common problem, then we might just want to leave it alone, since there might be reasons to keep it in place.
Can't think of one good reason this would ever be in front of us.
I suspect
Do you
there
know
may
how
be,
important this hearing is to the kids who are going to use that playhouse?
No,
That's
no.
really important.
I mean, the kids should never have had to go through this.
well,
I don't know, it's a great life lesson.
I think that this
Zoning
is,
at the age of 5.
I think that the sentiment behind this is right. There may be some zoning, and some legislative history that's worth knowing, because my experience is that some of these rules are here because people have abused the spirit of the regulations in the past. But relative to this case, I think that we should go ahead and support it, and then maybe put this on the to-do list for the, needs to be looked into, because we do want to support our families for sure. And it's a beautiful structure. I mean, and it's a beautiful structure. So, yeah.
Obviously, everybody could go to the Home Depot and buy a metal shed.
Right.
Without the rule or the ordinance, and everyone could have 1 or 2 or 3 in their backyard.
Yeah.
I don't want to see this again.
I think they put the picture of the kids in front of the house to try and sway the committee, though. That was really heart wrenching.
You got me. Hook, line, and sinker.
I didn't need any pictures to be.
I know.
All right, let's open this up to the public and see if we have anybody out there in the audience who wishes to speak to this.
President Rentz, the members of the public and council chambers do not wish to speak to this issue. At this time, if anyone is in the Zoom meeting, please raise your hand if you'd like to comment. I see no hands, President Rentz.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
I spoke too soon, President Rentz. There is one hand now raised.
Okay, well, let's hear from, is that Mrs. Cotton?
Yes, Ann, I'm asking you to unmute now. Welcome. Please state your name and your address.
Hi, this is Brian Sullivan. I'm the brother that put my brother and sister-in-law in this quandary. And I've been banished to Darien, Connecticut. That's my daughter Ann Cotton's computer I'm on tonight. I'm afraid to say anything because I'll probably just screw up what you've all just said. But I do appreciate the comments. We wanted a structure for these boys to play in. And they play in it, their friends play in it in the safety of their backyard, somewhat apart from hovering parents. It's been dubbed their clubhouse. I apologize for my oversight in not seeking a permit. I honestly did not know one would be required. But it is a pretty playhouse. It is used. It's really, it's well built. It's really in keeping with the quality Winnetka is known for. And I request that you agree with the zoning board and let the playhouse remain as it is and where it is. Thank you.
And as the mother of 4 boys, I could totally support anything to get boys out of the house. So.
Thank you.
Chris, can I just say, I walked by there. I thought it was really nice and so on. So there's no objection on this at all. But in the last year, and this is not a zoning violation, this was just a mistake or whatever it is, but in the last year, we've dealt with parkway planters, just sort of being built. We've dealt with permeable space being taken, when it really isn't authorized. We're going to see pictures of unauthorized signage tonight. When it comes, David put the pictures in there of unauthorized signage, and so I'm not saying that our job is not to be the constant enforcer of this, but it just seems like this kind of thing is going on more and more, that maybe people aren't aware of the zoning codes or aren't aware of the permitting process or whatever it is. And it just always comes up to us to be the arbiters of it, which is unfortunate. I mean, some of it's, and I agree with Andy, this is like a no-brainer, but some of them aren't no-brainers. Some of them are just like people taking advantage of, their neighbors or whatever. So I don't know what the answer is, but it seems to be bubbling up more often and often. I don't know what the answer is, but I hate to put our staff as the monitors of this thing, and but there are standards that are in place for reasons, I guess.
I think the good news is we just blow this thing through and and make it
And move
happen
on.
when they come up and move on. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm with you though. I hear it.
Bob, I think the answer is something that we've all known for quite a while, that the zoning code is antiquated and poorly connected, and one section doesn't speak to another consistently. There's a lot of problems in that code that we've all been looking forward to the day where we can really sit down and roll up our sleeves on that. Obviously, we were hoping to hear from the community to help set standards that we could then figure out how to write the appropriate legislation for. But thank you, COVID. So once Lakota gets back on board and we can start moving that process forward, I think then we'll have plenty of fodder for making the necessary resolutions, so we don't have to deal with stuff like this, which I think most of us agree from a common sense perspective makes little sense. So, all right, well, let's get this one off our, first of all, does anybody want to have a second bite at this at the next council meeting? Or are you willing to waive introduction?
Yes.
I see everybody saying yes. Okay, that's good. So now I've got to go through my if waiving intro.
I think Brian Sullivan needs to stay out in Connecticut. I don't think he's allowed back in Winnetka.
We'll just pin him up on the wall at the
Exactly.
of the Playhouse. All right, do I have a motion to waive introduction of ordinance number M9 2021?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Lampier,
Yes.
trustee Apatoff,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Caladarchi.
Yes.
That motion carries. And then now I'll ask for a motion to adopt ordinance number M9 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Apatoff,
Yes.
trustee Lampier,
Yes.
trustee Caladarchi,
Yes.
trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Swerk.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. And hopefully the boys will enjoy their playhouse for years to come. All right, moving forward, item B is ordinance number MC3 2021, sign code amendment, illuminated signs, and this is up for introduction. The Design Review Board has been assisting Village Council on the issue of illuminated signs by researching the issue and providing recommendations. Community Development Director David Schoen will discuss the results of the DRB's discussions, and we will hear from a business owner requesting an illuminated sign. If I remember this correctly, we were just about there the last time around and felt we just needed a couple of the blanks filled in by David and the DRB. But I seem to remember we were almost ready to pass it through in some way, shape, or form, pending hearing what we need to hear this evening. So I guess David will clue us in on all that, so I'll turn it over to him.
Yes, so the council in November of 2019 received a request from one of the property owners in the commercial business district to allow internally illuminated signs. They approached you at a council meeting. You referred it to the Design Review Board. The Design Review Board came back to you and said that it was worth studying the issue further. and that they were open to studying it, and you agreed and sent it back to the design review board for further study. The pandemic hit, and then once we got caught up with not having design review board meetings for a while, we finally caught up with the applications we had and then got back to this issue. So in December of last year, the staff presented a report, which is included in your packet on the issue. We had studied sign codes from over 25 communities regarding illuminated signs. They included nearby communities. The Chaddick Institute at DePaul has a municipal design review network, and they had a number of regional sign codes that we looked at. Also, the Lakota group, as part of the comp plan, is studying comparable communities to Winnetka, and we looked at those sign regulations, and we looked at a few others, and based upon that, we presented some background information to the design review board on the issue. And we presented different ways they could consider allowing more illuminated signs. In the end, after they reviewed the issue, they concluded that at this point, they could only recommend allowing or clarifying that we allow backlit halo signs. And they made a recommendation, including some wording, to amend our code to allow such signs. In terms of signs that indicate a business is open, such as a sign that just says open, the design review board could not recommend approval of those signs because they didn't feel that they fit into the design character of the community, and some members didn't feel they were appropriate. In the staff report to the design review board, staff did include some language that they could consider to recommend, but they did not recommend that language. So that's a quick summary of the board's review of the issue. I'd be happy to answer questions you have on the issue.
Great. Questions for David?
My recollection is we also had questions about the TV screens with signs on that, and on electronic signs. Those are forbidden, right? The electronic ones are.
Correct. They did look at that as part of the staff presented information regarding that issue. And at this point, they did not feel that they could recommend approval of those signs.
Including the television screens?
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So
David,
aren't there businesses that have television screens in their windows now?
As long as they're more than 5 feet from the window, if they're more than 5 feet from a window, it's not considered a window sign.
Okay. Okay. And then the term electronic, I think electronic sign was your comment or your note? How do you define electronic?
Generally, it's thinking electronic message sign. They could be in the form of signs that have individual bulbs that create the message, or it could be more in terms of a sign such as a television display monitor. Some communities, you see Oak Park makes a distinction between the two types. They allow the one type that's more of the television display monitor. They don't allow the individual light bulb type of sign.
Right.
Some communities don't make a distinction between them. But again, the DRB didn't recommend that we amend our code to allow that.
I interrupted you, Bob. Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, John, not at all. So David, DRB, what, they had 3 or 4 meetings on this? Is that right? Starting in
yes.
December?
Well, they've had two meetings recently to discuss the issue in more detail.
Okay. And then you included, as I mentioned earlier, the photos of quote unauthorized signs that are in town. I mean, so this is kind of going on anyway, but DRB was very clear in what their standards were, what they felt was appropriate for the community. I mean, that's what they came down on. I mean, they were okay with the halo signs, but they thought the open signs just wasn't appropriate. I mean, that's basically what we're talking about here, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Rob?
What has been done with the signs that are in violation?
Well, prior to even this becoming an issue before the council in December 2019, 3 or 4 of the people came into compliance with the sign regulations. And then the other 2 still continue to use their signs, and we haven't enforced them because we've been exploring amending the code. And that was at the direction of the council at that time, to leave those signs in place as the issue was being studied.
And the halo sign, which is recommended, are many using that right now?
Core Power Yoga on Green Bay Road has one. The Shade Store also on Green Bay Road in Hubbard Woods has one. And there's one more that I can't think of off the top of my head.
Okay.
And there had been an interpretation before I arrived that those were allowed, though the code didn't clearly state that. So the amendment today is to clarify in the code that they are an allowed type of lighted sign.
And this is just an extension, I think, of the Playhouse problem. I mean, if you walk through town, just signs all over the place, easily identifiable as not being per the ordinance. But I also think that it's not out of control, but the ordinance maybe does need some cleanup. And to put a TV screen in your window, if it's 5 feet away or 2 feet away, I'd be more concerned about what it's saying on the screen to make sure there's nothing bad. But it's a new technology. We're in 2021. And I think our signage should look like that. And maybe the open sign on page 97 of our packet being the old looking neon open sign. Well, in 20 years, it might be vintage. I don't know. I mean, it's just somebody wants to be able to drive by and see that their store is open. So, you know, I'm pretty difficult on a lot of zoning stuff, but the signage is a key thing. And again, some of the signs you see in the windows, the cleaners and pickup and delivery and free stuff, and none of that stuff complies.
Right.
But you do see it a lot of places in town.
Right.
And how much do you want staff to go after it? Or do you want to promote our business? It's a fine line.
Well, John, I figured out where the other side of the line was last week when Chase Bank put up 2 huge signs. They were both like vinyl wraps. One was applied to the brick next to their doorway, which was nothing more than an advertisement that you see on the internet. And then that window that faces south and east, which is a huge window, was plastered with another advertisement.
Right.
And it took 2 phone calls and they came down. So
yeah, I agree with you, Chris. I've been around, left to their own devices. I want them to make a good living, but they know where they are. They moved into Winnetka for a reason. I think these standards are important. I want to give latitude, and I think that the design review board is trying to make it come up to speed. But without something, it becomes literally a free for all. And I've seen it in so many towns where retail just and I get it. They just want to shout louder, and then it just becomes a mess.
Relative to the open signs, and I know that we had the conversation before with Julie and the concern about how to attract people's attention as they're driving by so that they know that it's open. If the design review board or anybody, staff has options that store owners can use that would accomplish the same results, but in a way that is in keeping with what the goals are. I think that we owe it to our businesses to try and provide some positive examples to accomplish that. Also moving forward, I don't know, we've always had signs flat against the wall of our buildings, but as you drive down the street in our commercial areas, I don't know if it would be, well, let me say it in a positive way. I think that signs that hang on an arm so that you can see it as you're driving because it's facing you rather than, being flush against the wall. I would love us to consider that because I've seen it look really lovely in towns, and it certainly is a way for a business to be more visible to people who are driving through town if they're not making a point of stopping and looking in the windows. So anyway, I think there's a lot more that can be done relative to making signs to support our businesses, but I would like to support the design review board and the work that they've done on this.
I think one other element, Penny, I think it's a good point. One other element is that you really have to look, because I've done a lot of retail in my days running companies, and you got to look at where it is. This isn't Dempster Road where people are going by at 35, 45 miles an hour and they need to see at a glance if something's open. People are driving hopefully 20 miles an hour, and it's just a different place which has different needs for retail screening. And I think that's important.
Right. So if we're going to say no, we should give an option of what yes could be. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, consistent with John's comment, I mean, we have to recognize we're in the 21st century and, things are going to change and the way people market their businesses are going to change. And we certainly need to be, cognizant of that and build a little flexibility in as the markets continue to change and new technologies come out. And, clearly there is a concern with setting the right tone and the right mood in our downtowns. And I don't think we ever want to lose that. It's just a matter of how do we accommodate some of these newer technologies and, allow shop owners the best chance possible to succeed. It certainly is not vinyl signs pasted on the side of a brick building, but what it is, I don't know. And I don't know if tonight's the night to solve that, because it's not what we have in front of us. What I would like to do, though, is before we finish up our deliberations, is hear what folks in the audience might want to share with us on this, so we can factor that into our thinking as we go forward.
President Rintz, we do have a member of the public in the council chambers who would like to speak to this matter.
Sure. Looks like Teresa's coming up to bat.
Yes, Teresa's also raised her hand. We'll recognize her next. Brian, are you in council chambers?
Yes, I'm in council chambers. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And the individual asked if you'll be able to see video.
Let me see. I don't have a way to share the video in public comment, unfortunately.
Okay. So I'll turn this over to the individual in the council chambers.
Hi, it's Julie Windsor again from Beach Street, 552 Lincoln Avenue. So I had one of the open signs in my window before I was then told I had to not have it so close to the window. I think they said I could move it back 5 feet and keep it, but then it would be in the middle of the selling floor. Anyway, I brought the sign with me tonight, but I realize you might not be able to see it. And it's in the back of the chamber, plugged in and lit up. And it does look a little bit like a diner sign, but it's very, very simple. I've been discussing it with Daniel Burns, who is the representative for Hoffman Properties. And he found one that's similar to mine, but is more tasteful. And he was suggesting that maybe we could use a uniform open sign in the storefronts that would be acceptable and that would just tell people, yes, we're here today, park your car. We don't have the water off. We don't have a gas leak. We don't have an employee with COVID. There's been a lot of reasons that shops don't have uniform hours these days. We wish we did, but we don't. One day the water's broke, the next day, like I said, an employee's out sick with COVID and you close the whole shop just to sanitize everything. So an open sign during this time in particular, this pandemic, would be very helpful. And then maybe when the pandemic ends, we can revisit the ordinance. But the customer needs to know we're there and they need to know when we're there, and they're not all going to pick up the phone and call us. So I find it's very challenging right now to have a store, especially with the construction. It's caused a lot of problems and it's made it very difficult to stay in business. Our rents are high, our payroll is high, and we have very few people taking to the block right now. And a lot of problems on the block right now. So the sign would be helpful. And the sign that Daniel Burns likes is much cleaner and is programmable to the color you want, or it can just be black and white, and it could be discreetly in a corner of the window or up high in the window. You guys could decide where you want it placed. That way people would know we're open today. So I don't know if you have any questions for me about this.
Not just yet, Julie, but that is a really interesting idea about coming up with a uniform sign that might be something that all businesses could use. That's something to give some additional thought to. Thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you. Again, when I read over some of the comments of design review, one of them said, all those shops have the same hours. I was like, I don't think we all have the same hours though.
Right.
So I wonder, do they even shop in the shops in our district? All right, well, thank you.
Anybody else, Kristen?
Yes, President Rentz, we have Teresa who has raised her hand. Teresa, I'm going to allow you to talk and ask you to unmute. Please state your name.
Hi, this is Teresa Lucas, Good Grapes, 821 Chestnut Court. So for me, this topic is interesting because I view it as a functional need. So my store, like several of the other stores, looks closed during the day. And I've actually brought in and had some estimates done on how to change the lighting, so that it looks great at night, candidly, but it looks closed during the day. And that's also from customers saying, gosh, every time I come by, you're closed, and I'm open 6 days a week. My hours haven't changed, since I've been here. And the estimates that come back are a chunk of change. And I don't think my building's only one. There's some pretty creative electrical work that has been done here prior to me arriving, which is definitely adding to the estimate. And so, and it's a building I don't own, to be putting that much work into it. So my thing is just a really simple open sign. I don't even need it to say closed because I would just turn it off, and have it on during the day because that's when the store looks closed. And that's, that's out of what I've looked into, about $250 to $400. And that is so much lower than the estimates I've received to have the lighting fixed. Thank you.
And President Rentz, Liz has raised her hand.
Hi, thank you. This is one of those issues I wasn't expecting.
You can hear.
I thought I unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes, we
sorry.
can hear you.
Sorry. So this is one of those issues I wasn't expecting to comment on. I wasn't expecting even to be here still now, but I was still interested in the issues you're considering. So here I am. So I want to follow up on Julie's comments. Again, this wasn't even an issue. I honestly wasn't even aware this was on the agenda. So literally just learned everything just now. in general, obviously, we know everyone on the call here wants to support our businesses, and especially during COVID. I love the idea of some uniformity period, like under general circumstances, but especially now. And then honestly, just an idea, a question, sort of rhetorical, not for me, but more for Julie and Teresa. If there's an issue of passing an ordinance versus having some sort of temporary measure in place, could it be covered under the emergency powers that were just extended in some way? I don't know if that could get to it, but I was just putting it together that if that could be a solution, then it could be worth considering. It seems like that is worth considering, obviously. And so looking for ways to make it happen. Again, I know everyone's for that. So it was just an idea that I put together and wanted to pose. Thanks.
Thank you, Liz. Kristen, anybody else out there?
President Rintz, Teresa has raised her hand again.
All right, we'll let her back in.
Thank you. I want to be clear. Mine's not COVID related. I've gotten 2 estimates over roughly the 6 years, and I went back, within the last couple of months because there are so many new people moving into the village. That the feedback from my customers has come up again, that you're always closed. So I want to be clear. I don't view this as a COVID related issue. My store with the current lighting looks closed during the day. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. And you know what? You're right. I mean, there's been several times where I've been driving down Chestnut Court there and thought to myself, it's 3 PM and Teresa's store is closed. And, only to see you 15 minutes later outside with the dog. So I knew you were there, but the store didn't look open. So that is definitely is an issue that needs to be thought about as well. Thanks. All right, well, anybody else out there, Kristen?
There are no additional hands raised, President Rintz.
Okay, we'll bring it back up to council and find out what it is you want to do. I see John's got his hand up right away. So John, go ahead and lead off.
Is this part of the zoning ordinance, something that'll be reviewed in the 2040 plan or no?
Oh, I think everything's on the table for the 2040 for sure.
Okay. So I think at this point, somewhat similar to what we did with the whole bonus plan on the FAR and the historic homes. It doesn't appear that no one's really trying to enforce signage rules by walking down the street and give people tickets. Can we just put a 1 year, let them put their open signs up and address this when the 2040 plan is going ahead? I think uniformity of everyone having the same open sign is probably bad.
Yeah.
It might want to look like their store or their residence or their, look like the store or restaurant should look like the style of the rest of the store.
Mm-hmm.
And it is hard to show a store open during the day because anytime you look in glass, it's dark. So I'm not sure how you fix that other than keep doors open and put signs outside and put boards on the street. But I'm pro business and I do care what things look like, but there are some people that are taking advantage of signs that look like garbage. But a simple open sign or, not to pick on people, I just looked on Google Earth on Benavente and Stein on Hibbard, or on Green Bay Road, sorry. And they've got signs hanging behind the glass. They've got letters on the glass. They've got pictures in the windows leaning against. That doesn't look good either. And maybe that doesn't comply. But unless you're really gonna have an enforcement officer go through and really be a sign police, that's a full-time job. So I'm not sure what the answer is, but maybe there's a short-term answer until it gets re-reviewed.
Other thoughts, Rob?
I think I think it's fair. I think, John, I think you're onto something. I think do we even have any type of education when shop owners open shops in Winnetka? I mean, where our people can just say, here's the review. I mean, you're right. If shame on us if they kind of open up stores and they aren't given any guidelines of how they're supposed to, and maybe they do. Rob, I mean, maybe you can help me with that. Are new shop owners given any type of, here are kind of the rules of the road?
We've had, well, first off, we don't have a business license in the village. So the opportunity to engage upon an application is not there. So as businesses become aware to us, we have shared information where they've had requests either for a build out. Sometimes that's dealt with in a pre-occupancy walkthrough. You know, what are the zoning regulations? What are the building, what requires a permit, what doesn't?
Yeah.
So it varies across the board. So there's opportunities to share information as we engage, but nothing formalized on the front end, primarily because there isn't that kind of trigger at the beginning.
I guess that's kind of my thought. If I was a retail shop owner, I'd be frustrated if I wasn't given any kind of guidelines, and I kind of do things to try and drive my business, and I'm told they're not later on that it's not right. So I think some communication up front would be helpful.
Yeah, and we're not out there inspecting. Usually it's a complaint basis.
Yeah, and that's why instead of letting it get to that point, a little upfront communication would be really helpful and a lot more fair to any type of retail shop that's here in Winnetka. That's kind of my, let's be clear up front so there isn't hurt feelings later.
And maybe part of that, I'm not sure why we don't have a business license, not to make money on it or anything.
Right.
But if there was a minimal fee to apply for a business license, that at that point, you're given their information and signage and rules and regulations. I mean, it's no different than a little play in someone's house. The person really didn't think they needed a permit for that.
Right.
Because they're not educated. They don't do what I do or what some of us do every day and know that there's ordinances.
Yeah.
And it's tough. So I'm not sure how you get around all that, but it's a big task, even though it's only signs.
I mean, you and I, when we were on the DRB, we would spend hours on blade signs and this sign and that sign. And, it was all about kind of the DRB commentary on this issue, the character of the town and so on. And so I think the signage, is important. We're really talking about illuminated signs here. I mean, we're not talking about Teresa putting a nice, black and white sign open in her front door or something like that. So, I mean, the issue on the table tonight is really what the DRB sort of came to us with.
Yeah.
And that is good with the halo signs, not so good with the illuminated open signs. But I think if we said we're open to open signs, that we could get that going. I mean, I don't think we should just say right now, any merchant wants to put an open sign, whatever it looks like, put it in your front window or your door or whatever. I mean, I don't think that's the right answer here, but I mean, we should be open to signs that are appropriate for the downtown district. And but tonight, I mean, they kind of came to us. I have a lot of respect for the people on that commission, I will tell you. And they spent a lot of time on this. And so, I don't know that we want to open up the issue tonight, other than to say that we would be welcome to classy open signs if they were presented. But tonight we're talking about the halo signs and the illuminated open signs.
Right. Yep.
I mean, I agree. I think that we need to problem solve this. It's not, I don't think it's a yes, no. And I think that I think that we need to provide solutions for our business owners. So if we have a vision here of what it is that we want, I think it's our responsibility to provide it to our businesses. So I don't know if this needs to be, Julie has an idea, working with a design review board or something. I mean, I'm looking online and there are definitely some interesting signs. There aren't a lot of them, but that might accomplish it without looking terrible. So why don't we try to come up with a good solution rather than, I don't know, what do you guys think?
I think we have to look at what was presented tonight. And I think they did put a lot of time, as per Bob, what Bob said, into this. So I
Yeah.
think approving some of this, approving what they have on the table now, I think is a good first step. I do think, well, everything doesn't need to be identical. There's a lot of other things we're gonna have to decide, size, if you're gonna, you know, if down the road we want to do something like this. That's
But
gonna
I-
just more time, but I think.
I
what's on the-
personally,
Good.
I personally would rather not come up with the idea and approve it.
Right.
I think that's somebody else's job. I mean, you know, I'm not a design person is what I mean to say. I mean, obviously, in the end, it is our decision.
Yep.
Hey, David, refresh my memory. How did this lit up open sign get to us to begin with? Was it a complaint? How did it happen?
Yes, and generally what happens is that when we receive a complaint on one business, then we learn of others who aren't in compliance. And so the one started and ended up with the 4 or 5 that we presented to you in November of 2019.
Okay. And the whole issue is that it's an illuminated open sign.
Yes. So a business can have a non-illuminated open sign, temporary sign, considered an incidental sign in their window. It's the illumination, the internal illumination of the sign that's not allowed by our code.
Okay, well, I think what we need to do is, I'll give a chairperson of the DRB, Kirk Albertson, I'll give him a call and ask him what their appetite is to dig a little bit deeper on some of these other ancillary signs that David was mentioning, particularly the open sign. And if they have an appetite to study it and maybe engage some of the business community in it, Rob, we can put him together with Liz and see if we can get some engagement. And maybe they can bring back a recommendation on that in the meantime as well. I don't think, clearly not going to get it done tonight, and I don't think we have the bandwidth or the information to make a good decision anyway.
Right.
Andy, I see you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, so the ordinance that is in front of us, it seems to me it's just, it's adding something that's not currently allowed.
It's
And-
clarifying something that's currently allowed. It's not specifically allowed in the code, but we've interpreted the code to allow it. So it's clarifying.
Got it. So it's clarifying something that's already allowed. I think we all have no problem with that.
Right.
So it seems to me approving this makes sense. I don't think anyone's opposed to that. Then we've got this other issue of, I guess, non-conforming signs, like maybe there's 2 or 3 of them. I agree with John. It'd be nice to have kind of this reviewed as a more robust process. Another thought would be just create, and I hate to do this, but we're only talking about 2 or 3, an exception process or a waiver. It seems to me that there are going to be businesses that are unique and that where our normal standard might not really make sense for them. You know, if we were lucky enough to get like a 1950s diner, that would be an example. Beat Street, I think, is a unique store. You know, I think the sign is really cool. And when you see it next to the big red plastic minion kind of guy, it fits. I mean, I'm not an architect, but that fits. You put an externally illuminated sign next to the big red plastic guy, it's gonna look stupid. So I think if we had an exception process like that to take care, because I truly think it's appropriate for that building. Do I want to see that in every building? No, but I think it's cool there. So my suggestion would be, let's approve the thing that the DRB worked on. Maybe we can find a way to have an exception process or kind of a review if someone needs something a little different, because their business, we want different businesses. We don't want cookie cutter, you know, McDonald's, Panera, Potbelly businesses. We want unique businesses that we have, and we want to embrace their unique styles. And we're going to give kind of standard guidance to help make their life easier. But if they've got something unique, I think, you know, that's something we ought to consider. And if there were some way we could literally just make a motion grandfathering in these existing signs, I would do that in a heartbeat, just so we could be.
Well, then we got to give Julie a chance to put her sign back up because she complied.
Or she could sell it to the Kripe family. We've got a little diner area downstairs. This would be perfect there. So,
I'll
but
complain.
Chris, I don't, I think we ought to respect the work of the DRB.
Yeah.
And they looked at both these issues. They looked at the issue of the halo sign and the open sign, and they voted against the open sign. And I don't think we should be acting as sort of a de novo hearing on the DRB. They did all that time, spent all that effort, and a lot of hearings with a lot of people who are very involved in this issue, who
I think they set a good standard for the village as a whole, but I think we always, whether it's a zoning issue or any issue, it's appropriate. I don't think they attempted to say, you know, does it make sense to have an exception for this one store? Because that was not something that they would even have the ability to do.
I think every store is going to feel that they deserve an exception. And if you say that we're going to open up exceptions for 3 people, then there's going to be no way to stop it for anybody else. What standard would you apply to say your store isn't special enough? They're going to come back and say, but my business is suffering. I need to be able to get the attention. And so I think that by leaving, by not making the exception, but putting the issue back to the DRB and letting them determine how to resolve this issue, I think is probably the most efficient thing to do. And it would keep us from, again, overruling or over, you know, wiping out the work that's done by a commission that we rely on to make these decisions and then refer them to us. I mean, unless there's something not profoundly wrong, I don't know if profoundly is the right word, but unless there's something really wrong with the way the DRB reaches its decision, even on this issue of the exceptions, I would say we should respect their expertise. And again, there may not even be an issue of doing this right now, but I would say let the DRB decide it. And then unless somebody can make a good argument for why their decision is wrong, we should respect it.
Well, Jack, I think a lot, you know, the bigger issue is how you ask the question.
Right.
And, you know, if we send a message to DRB saying, you know, please advise us on how we get rid of this, or please advise us on how we can make common sense exceptions for really cool and interesting displays that are going to actually enhance and enliven the business district, are 2 different things totally. And maybe putting it to them in that way, that we don't want to inhibit the creativity of the shop owners and the business owners, but we still want to be able to reel something in if it gets too way out there for Winnetka, is a different direction than what we sent to them the first time, right, which was a specific sign in a specific location. And then, you know, David went out and hunted up some more just to figure out how many were actually out of compliance. I think if we put it to them more of as an assignment in that respect, we might get a different answer than what we've seen in these 2 exercises.
I think it's better to send it, to let them who've spent the time and the effort working their way through it, to, like you're saying, to send it back to them and let them come up with an opinion on how to solve that problem, rather than us stepping in and ignoring.
I would support that. They're way more knowledgeable about signs than I am, and I think it would be great for them to engage in a conversation. So I would be in favor of that.
Okay, well, I'll reach out to Kirk and talk to him a little bit about it. But in the meantime, it sounds like everybody's ready to get this ordinance passed. Is that?
Yes.
John, go ahead.
Yeah, when you go back to DRB, they'll be realistic, that they've got to find a way to be realistic on how it's enforced and permitted and all that. We're talking about 4 letters, OPEN, all right? I'm looking at Google Earth, Street View. You got the Lotto sign at BP Amico, 227 million, 9.9 million, 98 million.
And
I guarantee you, that's not approved.
Maybe you shouldn't have that sign on.
They should, I know.
Right.
But that's why we can't dump it all on DRB. I mean, this is our job.
Well, the compliance isn't their job. I mean, compliance isn't, they're not there for enforcement, but.
But we also have to be on the same side, architectural design review, but also pro-business.
Right.
No, I agree with you.
But DRB deals with those same issues. They're not they're not empty vessels who have no idea
Well,
of what we talk about up here.
I
at
don't
the
think any of us are calling them that in any way.
and I
shape,
totally agree. The
No, I'm
DRB
not
has
saying
got
you,
great
I'm
people.
not saying you are. I'm just saying there has to be a really good reason, I would think, to overrule the thought process of some very dedicated people who've looked at this way deeper than we have. That's all. I'm not saying that they are dumb or that we're dumb. I'm just saying specialties are a little different.
And I'm not
Well,
overruling
agree.
anything.
The DRB has got all great people. I feel about the open sign, kind of like Andy feels about the little playhouse.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about it. Put the open sign up. It promotes business.
Well,
Or we have to do the lottery signs or something else, but
I think they can't, I think they're saying you can put the open sign up. It just has to be a halo or a sign that's there. I mean, otherwise, I think you have to respect their decision. If we want to change it, that's one thing.
Right.
But I think you respect their decision and we go back and ask them what we think might want to do. So I think.
in the meantime, can the businesses keep their open signs up is my concern.
I think grandfathering them in, I think we go back and the DR is not, I don't know if that's right.
Yeah,
Because of-
grandfather.
Yeah,
because
because
it'd be permanent forever.
enforcement becomes a nightmare for the village.
Yeah, and
They
if I'm
get
somebody that,
grandfathered in, and then
if,
everybody else says, "Wait, I'm special too."
right, well,
Why aren't you making them take their sign down? And then somebody.
I complied in the squeaky, and the person that didn't want to do it didn't comply and they get grandfathered. So I think we approve what they have given us. And if we want to go back and I agree, there are smart people on that committee. Let's go back with some other, and see what else we can do to help, as we've done every single time for our businesses. We have a pretty good track record here. So let's approve what's on the table and then, but don't grandfather in yet. Let's go back and see what else we can do.
Yeah, I have no problem with improvements on the table and not the grandfather in the open sign, but let the open sign stay there.
Yeah.
I think
Not legally
leave it up to the village.
until we resolve it on the 2040 plan, like we punt kicked the bonus thing on historic houses.
I might do a COVID exception for a few months, but I hear you.
It's got to be a total relook at the 2040.
I like your thing, Chris.
How about I just simply ask Rob to direct David to take a very soft enforcement approach on this until we can get something more solid back from the DRB.
Yeah.
Is that okay, Rob?
That would be continuing our practice while this matter is being reviewed.
Right.
Thank you.
And even as far out as the 2040 plan.
But, John, isn't the issue here? I mean, no one, if Teresa put a nice sign in her door, no one cares about that. I mean, aren't we talking about, the blinking open sign, the illuminated, I mean, isn't that what the DRB concern is here on this? So you can't just say any open sign is fine.
Right.
Because
But it goes farther than that. Look at the enforcement that we have in the village with all
Different
the
issue.
other signs that don't comply.
That's a totally
I
different
bet you
issue.
more than 50% don't comply.
That's a different issue. We have all sorts of enforcement problems. I mean, I mentioned them already.
Right.
We've dealt with 4 of them in the last 6 months. Enforcement is an issue, but in terms of the DRB standards, the standards we have, I think they were just basically concerned about illuminated open signs.
Mainly
You
neon.
open that, you open that door, what else comes out of the door?
Right.
And so I agree. Let's just, I think no one's having an issue here with Teresa putting up a classy open sign in her door. So you're going on Chestnut Court, you see that she's open. If the DRB knows that, they can just deal with these exceptions, like Andy says, and just get them done. I mean, DRB deals with exceptions all the time.
Totally agree.
So let's just put that in their court as open signs can be exceptions, and they'll pass judgment on the class of it and so on. And, but they're going to put the hammer down when it comes to, something that is inappropriate. And Andy, they'll look at Beat Street and they'll say, well, it's next to the red guy and, whatever.
Yeah.
They'll make
If
their
I may,
determination.
if I may make one point of clarification. So the sign regulations do allow the design review board to grant variations of sign regulations, but not all sign regulations. So signs that are prohibited signs, the Design Review Board does not have the authority to grant a variation for those signs. Internally illuminated signs are a prohibited sign.
Right.
One of the options we presented to the DRB was to allow them by variation, and they chose not to recommend that as an option. So I'm just letting you know some more of their thoughts about about allowing these signs.
Okay, I think I need to talk to the DRB and find out where their pressure points are and maybe help them understand what you all are saying so we can find a middle ground here that could potentially work. I think it's how you ask the question and how you dictate the assignment that is going to get the end game that we're looking for here. So I'm willing to take that on my shoulders and do it soon. So if I can do that, if you guys would let me move ahead and ask somebody to make a motion for this, I would really appreciate it.
Make a motion to let Chris do what he just said he would do.
It's actually, I'm asking to introduce, even though I've never been a big fan of Roberts, I will ask this question as written. May I have a motion to introduce ordinance number MC3 2021?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Lampier,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Apatow,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Caladarchi.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. And I just want it known to the business community, those of you who have stuck around, that this council is committed on trying to find creative ways to facilitate you guys being successful in our community. We hear the need. We also understand the aesthetic that we're looking for in the town. And now the key thing is to ask the people in town who are the artistes to help us understand how we might accomplish both of those things. So thanks, guys. I appreciate it. And I make a commitment to talking to Kirk Albinson within the next week and finding out where their pressure points are and see if we can get a good assignment going. So with that, we'll move on. This is item C, resolution number R44 2021, purchase of Northfield Substation Transformer. This is up for adoption. As provided for in the 5-year capital plan, the Northfield Electric Substation is being improved by the village for added system reliability. Here to review is Water and Electric Department Director Brian Keys. Brian, come on board and take it away.
Brian's joining us right now, President Rentz.
I thought he was older.
Thought it was a goat the first time and then it was something else.
Good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you for the opportunity to present the contract award for the Northfield Substation Transformer. I'm proud to articulate this is one of the major milestones in the project, and then we can actually see the end of the project being successfully completed with your consideration of the transformer. The council has articulated this is in our 5-year capital plan to expand the substation to provide contingency to the electric system. The council's already awarded contracts for the installation and award of the firewall, installation and award of the switchgear, and the combat interconnection work to connect it to the 138 kV transmission system. Earlier this week on Monday, the switchgear arrived from the Siemens manufacturing facility and work's already started on installing this. We have went out to bid for the transformer. So we have went through a competitive bid process that was started in February 25th through bid 021006. It was posted on DemandStar, and we expected to get 4 bids from the manufacturing community that makes this size and type of transformers. The transformer specification was basically built with several components. One, physically the transformer has to fit into the transformer yard on the transformer pad and with the conduits that align with the conduits where the connections are going to go for the low voltage, which in this case would be 12,470 volt cables, and the connections for the control system. That was already constructed when the substation was built several years ago. Secondly, the transformer has to be electrically capable of matching our existing electric system. So it has a predetermined transformer ratio. We're stepping the voltage down to match our existing electric distribution system. And it also has to be compatible such that we can parallel it with the existing transformer. Staff and the consultant preferred a load tap changer on the transformer, and this is used for regulation of the voltage, manufactured by Rheinhausen, but we had concerns that single sourcing this component of the transformer would cause some potential pricing pressure, I guess, for lack of better words, on the transformer designers. So we did also allow them to provide an option for providing a different load tap changer design than the one that was preferred. Some additional things I would call to your attention that were in the bid document. Unlike the first transformer installed at Northfield, the main tank on this one will use non-flammable insulating fluid. Comes with a 5-year warranty. There's a commissioning and training services that would be part of this bid specification. There's a schedule of progress payments, which I'll cover later in this report. And we also informed the vendor community how evaluation of losses would be treated. And specifically, when the transformer manufacturer is designing and building a transformer, losses, they can manipulate losses. So you could have a cheaper transformer design, but it has really high losses, which in the end, losses are a cost of owning and operating the transformer. 4 companies did respond. The bids range in amount on the unit price of $860,500 to a little over $1 million. As you may recall, Strand was retained to assist us in the development of the specification and the award of this transformer. All bids at the time of initial receipt were deemed non-responsive. That means that they took exception to one or more things in our bid specification, whether it was legal terms or technical terms. The bid analysis was completed though, and we did look at the transformer losses, and that's included in the bid tab provided by the engineer of Strand, Andy Rundy of Strand, on page 256. After reviewing the bids and meeting internally, we elected to proceed with negotiating with WEG Transformers. WEG was the lowest priced transformer on a unit cost and on total losses. Interestingly enough, after we engaged that manufacturer with those discussions, they agreed to provide and accept our terms and conditions that were in our original bid document. There was also some subsequent discussions on their design as far as what I'll call the transformer low voltage cable compartment. Based on these, again, Strand has not only summarized the results of the bids, but is recommending, and staff is in concurrence with this, that the transformer bid be recommended award to a company named WEG Transformers USA in the amount of $860,500. The bid amount is less than the engineer's opinion of probable cost of $950,000. The resolution before you, because they did the bid from all entities were non-responsive, is that we're recommending on the advice of the village attorney that we reject all bids, waive the bidding requirement, and approve a contract with WEG. What's in your packet though is actually the contract that was in the document that was sent out as part of the bid. But because their official response was in fact deemed non-responsive, we're going to step of recommending that you waive the bids. From a project perspective, the bid document contained progress payments. So the transformer vendors will not undertake a project of this size without some progress payments along the way. So what was set up in the document was outlined before you, but in short, we would be looking at paid progress payments of $387,225,000 is my estimate based on the schedule of work that they would undertake. An additional $473,275 in 2022. So that compares, if you look at the calendar year, just the fiscal year, we had budgeted $658,000 with an additional $482,000 in next year. So we're still on track for a budget of $1.14 million. It's coming, flowing through the 2 budget years at a different rate than was originally projected. The last contract that will essentially bring the project to the final leg of completion is now going to be moving on, assuming you with your concurrence of this contract award, is a contract award for the installation services that will essentially take the transformer off the truck, lift it into the substation, and commission it and connect it to the high voltage and the low voltage. And that would happen next first quarter of 2022. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions or comments from the trustees and the village president as it relates to the resolution R44 2021.
Okay, great job. Thanks, Brian. Questions for Brian, guys?
Brian, I had a question on its packet, page 183. You don't have to do it. It's just a quick question. It says lump sum contract price $860,500. Says WEG pricing does not include offloading the transformer, on-site assembly, or field testing. Are those expenses significant?
That's in the scope of work that I mentioned in the, that's the next scope of work, which is estimated to be $145,000.
So would it be reasonable to figure that the price of this contract is 860 plus that 145?
That's, though, that will likely be a different, well, in almost all likelihood, be another third party. So we'll buy the transformer from WEG, and another contracting entity would be the one that would have that contract for 145,000 is the engineer's estimate to physically install the transformer.
And is it standard within this kind of a contract or this kind of work for that third party to do this kind of work?
That's
As opposed,
It's similar to how we did the switchgear. So if you remember, Siemens is actually the manufacturer of the switchgear, and we have Mead actually performing the installation of the switchgear and connecting it to the existing switchgear at the Northfield substation. So this would be somewhat analogous to that. We're going to buy the transformer from one entity, and then a contracting organization will physically install an entity that has experience with substation work.
and that's the same for each one of the other bids, the not acceptable bids that were made. You would have third partied this part of the job anyways.
That's correct. So under any of the scenarios, if we would have entertained a contract with any of those other manufacturers, we would have been still going out for the contract. If in fact, we knew this going into it, because if you look at the scope of work that we have Strand performing, their deliverables are a bid specification for the transformer and a bid specification for the installation services required to put the transformer in the substation.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Brian.
Other questions?
This came back in a better shape than I thought it was going to, so thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Would have been a little easier had they just been responsive right at the beginning.
First place. Clearly you whipped him into shape. Thank you.
Brian, I just, going back to Jack's question on the budgeting of this, just so I understand it. So you budgeted 658,000 for this year, but it's going to come in at 387 for this year. So a 300,000 underage, if you will. And then next year, if the whole project is $1,140,000, we'll be spending 750,000 versus the capital plan of whatever it was, 473 or whatever.
1.14 million is what I had spread across the 2 years.
Total
for this scope of work I'm talking about. So what's not in here is we're going to have the 860,500 plus you're going to have the installation services, which we believe is 145,000.
So I guess my question, and this is a Rob Behan question, and it's just a budget question, is when you straddle the 2 years and you have a fairly significant, shortfall this year in terms of spending, how is that incorporated in the the budget should account for that, if you will, that it's going to be pushed into the next year.
So what would happen in the August when Tim, Finance Director Tim Sloth, gives us our marching orders for the budget is when we go in on the budget system in New World, instead of budgeting, estimating that I was going to spend 658,000, I'll enter an actual estimate of what I think we'll spend.
Right.
So when they roll up the expenses that go before you for 2021, when you see the budget presentation, is assuming everything else tracked on budget or below budget, you're going to see then that we came in below on the capital plan. And generally it works and from my perspective, then it would work out. Where it would be More concerning is if I came in over budget this year and I was projecting that you need to raise my projected amount for 2022. I would be more concerned with making that, making you feel comfortable with that situation. So going back to, we planned on spending, nominally 1.1 million. It looks like we're on track to spend 1.1 million or less. It's being forecasted over the 2-year cycle at a little different flow rate than what we did when we put the budget together in August.
Right.
Okay,
So Brian's description is completely accurate. So what happens is his expenses would be lower to budget, but then that rolls up to fund balance to begin the new fiscal year. So you have a beginning fund balance, which is going to be higher than expected, and then we'll roll in the new expenses for 2022, the adjusted expenses.
Okay, so that when we look at the electric budget, I mean, whatever the number is, the expected number for year end will be adjusted down by $300,000. In other words, that's you're not going to, and I know you, Brian, you're as tight as can be on your budget, so I'm not saying this, but there's 300,000 being captured in lower expenses this year. We will see that when we see the results for 2021, and they'll be rolled forward into 2022. I mean, we're going to see this variance. I mean, it's not $10,000, it's $300,000. So that's why I asked the question.
Yeah, just like all of the capital plans, you snap the line, right? What you expended for the year, you adjust your fund balance going forward, and then you roll up then you present your new expenses for the next fiscal year.
Where trustee Dearborn, where I'd be concerned is if I had projected that we were going to spend 1.1 million and say this bid came in significantly higher, and I'd be potentially saying we need to, not only are we not going to hit the forecast, but we're going to need to raise the estimate. So the next check-in point would be when we get that installation services contract for council consideration. Our goal would be to see it come in so the total project's still at 1.14 or less. Now, if it doesn't, and then we need to not only ask you to accept that contract so we can get this transformer installed, then we're going to be projecting that we're going to be into a more tenuous discussion with the council on our capital plan, because I'm now going to have to raise beyond the initial 1.14 million for the transformer piece of the project.
Right.
Yeah.
So
go ahead, Chris.
For the simpletons in the group here, the bottom line is you're not going to be asking for more money to complete the project.
That would be my last resort.
Yeah.
And
that was not a yes answer.
And you won't be double dipping by pocketing it this year and then asking for it again next year.
Absolutely not. And like I said, where this would show up in the estimates is where the estimate for this project should not be listed at 658. I think that was what the number is when Tim puts us through when Finance Director Sloth puts us through the budget estimates for this year. It should come in wherever we land. So if the manufacturer, this is where, based on their quotation and lead times and the progress schedule. Now, if they, for some reason, expedite getting this through the process, what I've laid out in the agenda report is, what you could expect to see when the warrant crosses in front of you for approval. So if they get further along and say somehow they get this transformer delivered to us in December, I'd be coming to you to pay in December as opposed to January 2022 or first quarter of 2022. What we're asking you to approve that's in this contract document is an amount not to exceed the $860,500, and the payment items that would cross the warrant are listed in there based on those project milestones.
Other questions?
And Brian, you haven't had any dealings with this contractor, I assume. I mean, we've gotten references and so on. I mean, we're good with them.
I have not. Strand Associates has. They have also provided transformers to other large utilities.
Okay.
And the bid spec, the 4 companies that provided bids were the 4 companies that we were willing to entertain their product if they could meet the terms and conditions. And so candidly, I would have taken any one of the 4. And the reason we're dealing with WEG is because of where the proposal started from.
Good.
All right, anybody else?
Brian, one last question. Is there space on the plan for a playhouse with an illuminated open sign?
The substation is located in Northfield, so we may be able to do that.
And it's got to be a 12,000 volt sign.
You're gonna blow out the sign with this thing.
All right, is anybody in the public interested in weighing in on this? Kristen?
The council chambers, Brian, is there anyone who wishes to speak on this?
No, there's nobody present beyond myself at this time.
Thank you. And the Zoom platform, if you'd like to speak on this matter, would you please raise your hand? President Rentz, I see no hands.
Okay, we'll bring it back. Anybody want one more bite at this apple, or can we move it forward?
Move forward.
Nobody's looking hungry. That sounds great to me. All right, I'll go ahead and ask for a motion to adopt resolution number R44, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Caladarchi,
Yes.
trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Apatoff,
Yes.
trustee Lampier.
Yes.
That motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. Good work. Sorry to keep you so late.
No problem. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
I
Brian.
learned a lot about signs. There you go. Much better
Thank
look.
you.
Johnny. Once we hit 9 o'clock, this thing goes right down the tubes, I'll tell you. Okay.
Chris, I have to go.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, then you just get to bow out. Okay. we'll go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'm making the baby cry. See you later.
right.
Bye.
Well, she's missing the best part. Item 12, old business, there is none. Item 13, new business, there is none. Item 14, appointments, there is none. Item 15, closed session, thank goodness there is none. And item 16, adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Apatoff,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Caladarchi,
Yes.
trustee Lampier.
Absent.
Yes.
He says yes.
He says yes. All right, we stand adjourned at 9:04, and that 4 minutes cost me $20 because I bet we could have got this done under 9 o'clock. So
Got to work on it, Chris. Thanks, everybody.
Aye.